All right, so we're gonna get into the bulk of what the test is gonna be on, or at least a good chunk of it, which is markets. And remember, market means this supply and demand relationship, okay? Uh, Keep in mind, I did not put in, the supply table or schedule of data, or demand schedule of data. Just remember, for each uh, price, okay, there's a separate quantity, but demand is this entire set or series of price and quantities relationships. So if I put this little dots all the way down here, okay, all of that's on the same demand curve, and the same with supply. It's the whole series of points. So when supply and demand change, that means that the entire curve shifts left or right, depending, right being an increase, left being a decrease. Okay, so make sure that you understand that. So this point here, let's just call it Q sub D, that is a specific quantity demanded, okay? This over here, Q sub D2, that is another quantity demanded. This Q sub 1 is at the equilibrium quantity. And at the equilibrium quantity, that's where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. But just keep in mind, supply and demand, the name implies that it's the entire curve is supply and demand, okay? And know what happens for each of the 4 shifts, not double shifts, but single shifts. So I'm gonna start with, because this is kind of the most challenging to understand. Let's say there's new technology in harvesting oranges that would lead to an increase in the supply of oranges, which is gonna create a new equilibrium. And our supply curve shifts to the right, not up or down, left and right. It looks like S sub 2 is below S sub 1, which one could see it, but that doesn't matter. It's to the right of it, indicating the increase. So this is our Q sub 2, P sub 2. So our price goes down and our quantity increases when there's an increase in supply. This is good for the consumer, okay? I'm not gonna go through every single change because I think we have a reasonable handle on that. Let's talk about the different things that do shift the curves though in the market. All right, so I've got the demand shifters, tastes, okay, or need for something, or it's more healthy. We assume that consumers are logical and they purchase things that they want to make them happier, feel better. Successful advertising campaign, anything like that. Number of consumers or population, right? The more people that go to White Sox games, the more demand there is for food, concessions, souvenirs, etc. Income changes, a little bit more complicated than more income being more demand. Sometimes lower income leads to more demand for inferior goods, okay? So ramen noodles, public transportation, used cars, etc. Just keep an eye out, I'm not gonna have it screaming at you that it's an inferior good, but I will make it pretty obvious. Generic oatmeal is clearly an inferior good. Diamonds, new clothing are normal goods, which when more income leads to more demand, less income leads to less demand for normal goods, whereas with inferior goods, less income leads to more demand, more income leads to less demand. Okay, changes in price of related goods. So there's substitutes and complements. Hot dogs and hamburgers are substitutes. Price of one. Over here for a substitute, price of hot dogs leads to higher demand for hamburgers. Why? Because if the price of hot dogs goes up, people are gonna opt for hamburgers, okay? Complements, if the price of one goes up, demand for the other goes down. So if the price of hot dogs goes up, demand for mustard and hot dog buns goes down. Why? People aren't getting hot dogs, they don't need hot dog buns, right? price of hot dogs goes down, let me do cereal and milk. If price of cereal goes down, demand for milk goes up. Price of cereal goes down, demand for oatmeal or pancakes goes down. Okay? All right, so substitutes and compliments. When you learn how to swim, somebody compliments you. Okay, you can see why I've never made it as a great swimmer, but I understand compliments, so there you go, revenge. Expectations of price changes. This can be confusing because we're always talking about the right now market, okay? So how does what I think is going to happen in the future going to impact my decision making now? Well, if I think the price of gas is going to go up next week, I am going to buy it now, okay? So my demand for gas now is going to increase because of my expectation of the future increase. And vice versa, if I think the price of gas is going to go down in a week, I'm going to hold off on buying as long as I can and wait for that price to go down. Okay, expectations of price changes. You can also put in here, maybe to a certain degree, expectations about the economy, how consumers feel about job security in general. The better we feel about the economy, the more likely we are to spend money. That's going to help demand, especially for normal goods. All right. Supply shifters, main one is cost of resources. AP loves cost of resources as a determinant of supply because it's an inverse relationship. Higher cost leads to a decrease in supply. So if it's a higher cost to pay workers, then it's going to be a decrease in supply. Higher cost of equipment, higher cost of materials, ingredients, etc. Number of producers. The more businesses there are, the greater the supply. How many streaming services are there today as opposed to 3 or 4 years ago, right? ESPN stole my idea of the all sports streaming service. So I got a lawsuit pending, got lawyers working on it. You know, it's gonna be big. It's gonna be on the news. Technology. Technology only helps supply, okay? You know, we aren't gonna use technology if it makes things less efficient. Disasters don't help anybody, right? Whether it's man-made, cyber attacks, drought with regard to, crops or, hurricanes, whatever it might be, Florida disasters impact the supply of oranges, right? Government interference, and I specifically use the term interference here because ask any business owner, they don't want the government in their business, literally. Taxes and regulations. More taxes leads to less supply, more regulations. You can't farm for salmon in the Puget Sound or something like that, okay? I don't have price controls on the board. Please review that. Remember, price floor is above equilibrium, okay, and results in a surplus, and the price ceiling is below equilibrium and results in a shortage. Remember, everything's upside down with price controls, okay? And it creates disequilibrium. Quantity supply does not equal quantity demanded with the price controls. And wrapping it up here, getting it in before 10 minutes, I've got the double shifts and what happens for each one. Remember, the main thing about this is that for each one of the double shifts, something is indeterminate. Either price or quantity is indeterminate, and then something is a real doozy on price or quantity on the other one. So increase in both supply and demand, everything's just moving to the right, okay? Which is gonna increase the quantity, price is indeterminate. Decrease in both supply and demand, everything's moving to the left, price is indeterminate and quantity decrease, okay? We don't tend to care too much about that as consumers because we care about price. Obviously businesses care about quantity a lot, but we care about the price, which is why I put a star by number 3, decrease in supply and increase in demand. The price is gonna have a whopping increase in that situation. That's what's happened with gas over the last month. Quantity is indeterminate. And then increase in supply and decrease in demand leads to a major decrease in price, and the quantity is indeterminate. We don't tend to care too much about this double shift because why? Well, we don't really want the good anymore, so that's why the price is really getting low. So you're really in luck if you want a Cleveland Browns t-shirt. Back in the day, you know, got this one for $4.99. That's not $499, I'll just have you know. It's $4.99. There was another one, and I just grabbed another one. You know what I mean? I should have grabbed a third, you know, but now it's paying off. All right, we good? That's a little bit over the 10-minute mark. That's enough to keep you busy. I want you to do well on the test. Please watch these over a couple times. Look over your notes. Probably post maybe a previous test from years gone by. Economics hasn't changed that much. And I hope you have a great day. Adios, amigos.